Hello and welcome to Archives and Records Simplified. So a quick word about these videos. These videos are aimed at people looking for basic knowledge about archives and records, and this could honestly apply to anyone. You may be a student that's looking to undertake the Archivist and Records Management course. You may be a librarian that's been asked to work with some archives. You might be a digitisation manager who wants to know more about the collections and the material that you're digitising, or you may just have a general interest in archives and records. This is a topic which I think will intersect with many industries, and the idea of these videos is to be as open and as usable for as many people as possible. The vast majority of videos in this channel will be less than 15 minutes, but some of them will get more complex in certain parts. Sources and further reading will always be posted at the end of the video. And also, I would just like to add, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments below. Or if you have any requests, if there's any topics you would like me to make another short video about, please also feel more than free to mention them. I'd be delighted to learn. A quick word about me. I'm an archivist based in London. You can look at my LinkedIn profile here. And lastly, I apologise for my thick accent. I realise if you're not Scottish, you might be struggling a little bit to understand me. Therefore, there'll be a full transcript posted in the description at the end of each video. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the channel and you find this of use. Also, if you find these videos useful, I would be really grateful if you could like and subscribe and possibly hit the bell button as well. Thanks. Okay, so this one is a review of the Masters I did in Information Management and Preservation at the University of Glasgow. So a quick overview and a few small disclaimers. I studied at Glasgow University about 5 years ago. I obtained funding from MSc, which I'll speak a little bit about, and I passed all of the key modules in addition to an exam and dissertation. I may be wrong, but I believe the exam is now no longer a part of the course, which if you're thinking about doing the course, you might be very happy about that. I personally seem to do better in exams, so for me that probably wouldn't be good news, but I don't think I'm the norm here. I'm probably definitely the exception. Lastly, I just want to emphasise that these are my personal experiences, and for more accurate and up-to-date information, I would contact the course tutors or see their website in the first instance. But nonetheless, I hope you find my experience might make some stuff a bit clearer and also might be a bit more helpful if you're thinking of doing the course, or maybe if you're already on the course and you're looking about where it might lead to or how you can get the most from it. Okay, so when I undertook the course, the entry requirements were a 2-1 honours degree, which I had. I think it's honestly one of the biggest myths that you need to be a history student or hold a related degree. If anything, it can be a slight advantage if you come from another background. For example, when I studied, I think there was a law graduate in the course, there were art graduates, there were people from all different types of backgrounds. It was also recommended that we had 2 weeks of cataloguing experience, which I'd had, and I really found that this helped a lot. And the application process also included a short statement demonstrated why I was interested in the course. And I think you'll have a far better chance of writing a good statement if you have experience and you can talk about why you think long term this is a career or an area that you'd like to work in. Okay, so there were 2 recommended books to look at before I began this course in 2014, and these were Scrolling Forward by David Levy, which takes a more philosophical view of what records and archives are. Levy has a background in computer science and calligraphy, and he uses his experience to draw parallels and continuity between traditional record keeping and modern digital records. Shepherd and Yale's book is a bit more practical and covers all the key aspects for managing records. 2 personal recommendations of mine are Laura Miller's book, Principles and Practice, which is really practical and offers a lot of really good advice, and the Alistair Tough and Moss book, which offers a lot of really cool case studies and examples. That book includes a series of chapters from different authors on different subjects, and it is a really good book for getting used to the more practical aspect of records and archives management. Okay, so I feel that if you're thinking of embarking on the course, then this is a topic you likely want to know as much about as possible. I realise that all people's personal situations are different, So I need to be clear that this is simply my personal experience and the other options may exist dependent on your situation. I'm also not, strictly speaking, making any recommendations here because your personal finances are personal to you. I'm simply going to explain how it worked out for me. I obtained funding from two sources from my MSc. One was a PGT Excellence Scholarship, and the other one was from the Graham Trust. This was an organisation that actually gave me funding because my mother's maiden name was Graham. They gave me £500, which I thought was mental and very fortunate at the same time. This funding overall accounted for about 50% of my fees, which I think was about £5,000, £5,500 in 2014. I can say it's also a little bit cheaper if you only want to do the postgraduate diploma or certificate, but that amounts to fewer credits and costs less. It's less of a qualification, but it costs a lot less and you study less, and that might be an option for some people. I should also say that there are also part-time options. I personally studied full-time, but I do know some students that did it over 2 and on one occasion 3 years. But I think it would be very rare to do it over a longer period than 2 years. The university website offers a long list of funding sources via the link shown. Okay, so the key modules were Archives and Records Information Management, which covered the history of records and archives over the last century or so. This introduces you to some of the key themes and concepts, such as appraisal and disaster management. The Shepherd and Yell book is really good preparation for this aspect of the course. Records and evidence, that concentrated on how records can have evidential value. And I recall this module for demonstrating the importance of context and also considering that evidence can simply be more than text-based. I remember doing a really interesting essay in that course where I think the question was something about how other forms of material and object can have recordness, and that was really interesting and it opened my mind up to what could be considered archival value. Digital curation/preservation gave an overview of the nature of digital materials and important themes such as integrity and authenticity, before progressing onto more practical content relating to digital preservation strategies. This module also included a lot of practical lab work. The description, cataloguing and navigation module focused on describing and sorting information or arranging information and included content relating to standards used by archivists and other information professionals such as librarians. And this module also included a placement, which I'm about to talk about. So the cataloguing module included a 2-week placement. I did my placement at the University of Strathclyde, where I catalogued a small personal archive of a geographer called Melvin Howe, and then that catalogue was essentially, that was my coursework for that course. There's a scope for selection, if I recall, if you're really passionate about certain types of collections or archives. So like if you're really interested in working with musical archives, there might be an option to go do something at the Scottish Music Centre, for example. But I do know that options can be limited, and this is probably one area where I would always recommend speaking to the course teacher or checking the website in advance. That was just my experience of that aspect of the course. I also did a module in digitisation, which was really practical and covered topics on how to digitise paper records to a high standard. This also included a really practical assignment. I undertook archives and records, understanding of archives and records, and I remember this module because I did an assignment relating to appraisal, which turned out to be really useful, and that experience was really helpful later in my career. There are also other options, including modules relating to legislation. I vaguely remember one for phenomenology, which I didn't do, and I think you can take an extra module sort of outside of the course relating to paleography. I audited a paleography course, which was really useful, that relates to reading old handwriting. And I also did a thesis, so my master's thesis was on the lack of archival materials about women's football. That accounted for probably the last 2 or 3 months of my course, and I really enjoyed it. And that comes with the full master's. Post-graduation, I volunteered a little bit before obtaining a job as an archivist in a private estate. Many of the people I studied with moved into assistant roles first before progressing further. And you can always go down more than one route this way. You can sometimes go down the archivist route, other people tend to go down the records and information management route. The course is accredited by SILIP, so I guess in theory there's an opportunity to go down the more librarian route. It did cover some library standards, but I think the vast majority either went into archives or records management. And I have to say that my MSc has been essential for every role I've had since. It's been a pre-requirement, so every role I've had since graduation has required the MSc. That's often been one of the key or essential criteria. Okay, so lastly, I thought I'd outline a few lessons I learned from my experience. I had a number of recommendations here, but to keep this video to less than 5 hours, I've identified 3. Firstly, I really recommend exploring all funding options before you start. You honestly never know what exists, and also be prepared to be patient and persistent. Sometimes it can be a frustrating process, but it's honestly worth it if you can get some help with your course. Secondly, see your dissertation as an opportunity. I know this can be daunting for many, but I do know people who used it to get practical experience, which also led to a job. I vaguely remember one girl from my course, I think she did something relating to copyright, and she used that later to get a job working for a copyright firm. So, maybe see it as a chance to say or do something, and it can also be a really good way to enhance your knowledge about a certain aspect of the archives and records sector that you maybe really want to work in. And lastly, I would say listen to the course tutors as much as possible. The advice the advice they offer often comes with years and experience, and you really miss that support when you graduate. One thing I remember from my course was that several of the teachers were also working archivists or working records managers or had worked in that field for a long time, and that their knowledge is really up to date, and the sort of experience they have is a lot more vocational and hands-on than you may get with other masters. So honestly, you should take advantage of that advice when you still can. And very lastly, I don't really think there are many references I can give for this, given that it's so heavily based on a personal experience. But I have added the link to the course and also a WordPress blog. So I vaguely remember that when I did the course, we often had to blog about different parts of our experiences on the course, so we used to update our blogs regularly. And I found a WordPress blog that seemed to do that. So the blogging might actually be a really good way to understand and learn more about the course. And very finally, I'm always up for doing more videos. If there's any aspect in this you would like me to go into in more depth, maybe such as my experience writing a dissertation or the thesis, or what my placement is like, I would be more than delighted. And if that is the case, please drop me a private message or leave a comment below. Thanks again. And if you find these videos useful, I would be very grateful if you could like and subscribe and possibly hit the bell button as well. I'm hoping to do a lot more of these videos in the coming months and year, and liking, subscribing and hitting the bell button will make it more likely that you'll see updates in your feed.